What's good, Savages? Welcome to a new episode of Blue Collar Sports. I'm Savage Paulson, and with me, as always, is the GPS of sports talk because he always knows where the conversation is heading. What's good, Zach? How are you?
I'm doing pretty good, Stefan. Always good to chat with you, talking everything going on in the world of sports. Always like the different nicknames I get. I'm usually somebody that gets a lot of nicknames, so just keep on adding to the list. I could probably sell a book with the amount of nicknames I've had over my lifetime. But no, I'm excited. There's a lot to talk about here.
There is definitely a lot to talk about. We're going to talk about some college football. We're going to talk about the Week 18. We're going to talk about wild card weekend coming up. But let's start here because I know once we get started to talk about, I might get lost talking about my Steelers. I'm still buzzing over the Sunday night game. Almost gave me a heart attack, but we'll get there. But before we do, breaking news about a few hours ago, about an hour before we started recording, you sent me a link. John Harbaugh is out as coach of the Baltimore Ravens. Of all the firings, I think there's been 7 now at this point. I might be wrong on the number, but I think there was 6 yesterday, and this might be 7th. Of all the ones, Harbaugh, definitely the biggest surprise to me. Now, when I say surprise, I just didn't think the Ravens would pull the trigger so fast, but now that I think about it, now that the season's over, it's kind of like, yeah, this is when you make these kind of decisions, right? I'm surprised by it, but in a way, I think it's the right thing to do for the Ravens. I think they need to move on from Harbaugh and maybe find someone else to replace him. But I want to hear your thoughts on this firing and on John Harbaugh no longer being the coach of the Baltimore Ravens.
Yeah, I was a little surprised when that news came down. I thought that, it wasn't exactly a lot of amazing years of success. There's been a lot of, when it comes to the Baltimore Ravens the last couple of years, just heartbreaking losses. And I think it's at this point now with the way the Ravens season has gone, and we'll obviously talk about that in a moment with your Pittsburgh Steelers, but the way that the Ravens have gone over the last couple of years, now this season missing the playoffs, plus you hear the rumors about, there was that editorial that was put out by the Baltimore Sun about, it sounds like the relationship between Harbaugh and Lamar Jackson isn't exactly as good as it once was, it sounds like. So you have to throw in that element too. And
Right.
in cases like that, when you have like a superstar player and you've already committed so much to him, at that point you start to let go of the coach first. So
That's
there's a
what I
lot
heard all
there.
week. It's like
Yeah.
uh, you're committed to Lamar Jackson. You obviously have a extremely talented quarterback when he's healthy. I know he's not, he's not young anymore, but still, I think there's still a lot of potential there. He still has a few years left at his quote unquote peak, maybe. This year was a bit different. He dealt with some injuries, a lot of different things, but you're committed to this guy. You've signed him to a long contract. You've given him a lot of money. Normally in these types of situations, when things need to change, you're not going to, because there's a lot of rumbling that was like, oh, will Lamar Jackson get traded? Are they going to send him somewhere else and start fresh with someone? And then in my mind, I'm like, that's not the right decision to make. You don't start with your star player out the window and then you keep your coach, you keep all these guys. I think by going this direction, by firing Harbaugh and committing to Lamar Jackson as your star player, I think is the right decision for me.
Yeah, and Harbaugh's been there for 18 years. He was one of the longest tenured head coaches in the NFL. I think only Tomlin had him beat when it comes to how long they've been a coach in the NFL.
And he
And
won a Super Bowl. I mean,
he won a Super Bowl. I remember watching that game. It was the Harbaugh Bowl, right, with the
right.
San Francisco, and that's when the lights went out in the building too.
11
But
postseason appearances throughout his career since 2008. Yep. I mean, multiple AFC North championships. I mean, he's got many. He's one of the highest win percentage among active NFL coaches. So, I mean, he's a great coach. He was a great coach. But I just think after a while, a lot of new faces with the Ravens, and maybe the message got lost, and it
Maybe.
was time for a change.
Yeah, I think that's just kind of what it comes down to when it comes to Harbaugh. It's like, do you really want to go another year and just kind of underachieve, or do you feel like you have to go a different direction at some point? I think we forget with Harbaugh. A couple of years ago, before Lamar Jackson came in, there was that period where people thought Harbaugh was going to get let go
Right.
because they were coming off of the Flacco years. They were looking for their solution at quarterback. The defense was still solid enough for Baltimore, but there were some years where it just seemed like they couldn't really find an identity. Then, of course, Lamar Jackson comes into the fold, becomes their starting quarterback, and the rest is history. Harbaugh sticks around, has a lot of winning seasons. But I think really this last second half of Harbaugh's time just kind of is defined by, you know, whether it be last minute chip shots to lose football games or brutal mistakes, costly drops. Like
Right.
at the end of the day, it becomes a consistent pattern. And you know, there's only so many times you can add it up to, oh, just a bad break. Sometimes that does go back to coaching, where you got to be prepared
Right.
for in these sort of critical situations where you can excuse one, right? Excuse one bad play, but it's been kind of constant over the last couple of years with Baltimore. So, and I say this, I really like John Harbaugh. Every
Hmm.
time I've heard him speak, every time I've seen him, go out and talk about his players, I think that's a guy that a lot of people, like if I was playing for John Harbaugh, I would root for him and I would like fight for him. But at the same time, you kind of look at the past couple of years, and there really is this team has always been a team that should be in a Super Bowl, but they have not been. You can say, oh, well, the Chiefs are in the same division, but you know what? Joe Burrow was able to take his team all the way to the Super Bowl in his second year. So I think at the end of the day, they kind of saw everything and said, look, we need to make a decision here. We need to kind of change the vision here of this franchise. And I will say with Baltimore is one of my favorite teams in terms of just how well run they are. They're just consistently have good football teams each and every year. And so I look at this and I think they just kind of realize, you know what, we could do one more year with this, but I think they saw the writing on the wall and saw that, this next season, if he just starts off the year 0-6, they were going to let him go anyway.
Right.
So why not have a fresh face and start something new and try and have a different vision of the Baltimore Ravens out there. So I was surprised. I think he'll be highly sought after in the free agency market in terms of head coaches.
He's already
When
linked
he's
to the Giants, from what I read.
that makes a lot
Right.
of sense too. I think the Giants are just kind of trying to find any sort of high profile coach at this point
I
because
mean, I
Jackson
think he's
Dart's
still a
there and
great
like,
coach. Like, I think
oh
he's
yeah,
still a good coach,
yeah,
but I just want to add to something you mentioned. The word preparation is a word I hear a lot when I hear about getting ready for football games. Preparation,
yeah,
preparation, preparation. All throughout the week, it's all preparation, preparation. And I might be talking out of context. I have no experience as a football coach. I have some experience with coaching, but not at any type of elite level like him or any of these coaches. But I will say this: I can only assume that after countless years of doing the same job and being extremely disciplined, that when things don't go according to plan, like, because this year was a tough year for the Ravens. I think
yep,
the expectations were high. If we go back to the beginning of the season, a lot of people were picking the Ravens not only to come out of the AFC North, but might come out on top in the AFC, and some were even talking about Super Bowl favorites early in the season with the Ravens. And well, they'd even make the playoffs. I mean, they had a really rough season. Yes, had some injuries. Yes, they had this, but I also think, like you said, at the end of the day, these missed chip shots, losing by 3 or losing by 2 points, like these things, if you look back during the game, if you look back during the week, I think it does come down to preparation, and it ultimately falls on the back of the coaches. And
yep,
John Harbaugh being the head coach, I think it just makes sense that that's the first head that's going to roll when the Ravens are I think dramatically in need of a change here in direction
yep.
and in management. So uh, I'm excited to see where he's going to land, because I'd be ready to bet uh, all my money that he's going to find a job rather quickly. That
Mhm.
he's not going to go. That by the beginning of next year he'll be on the sideline for name the team. So I'm excited to see him and how he's going to be able to transition into a new team. But
Yep.
yeah, it's I think it's the right thing for the Ravens.
Yeah, and one last quick thing before we move on, because I know we got a lot of topics we got
Hmm.
to get to. We got to really take it all in, but I think it becomes even more interesting because Mike McDonald was on that football team. Like he
Right,
was the defensive coordinator for the Baltimore Ravens, and he was somebody that was sought after as a head coaching prospect coming out of Baltimore. So at the time, there was some discussion, if I recall correctly, of like, we have this guy that is a head coaching prospect. John Harbaugh has been here for a long time. Why don't we have McDonald come in and, take over for John Harbaugh and get this sort of transition going? But they decided not to do that, and they let McDonald go to Seattle. And we see how that has worked out over the last couple of years now for Seattle, especially this year where they've got the
right.
bye and win the NFC. So I think it becomes even more interesting now when you look back at that decision to let Mike McDonald go, and who was such a key part of that defense for Baltimore a few years ago, and was such a hot coaching prospect coming in, and we're seeing how it's paying off for Seattle right now.
Absolutely.
I think there are some questions now of like maybe they should have gone off of the Harbaugh train a little bit earlier and try and get Mike McDonald and get that new vision like you mentioned going. But that's another thing that I was thinking of when I saw that Harbaugh was let go. I was like, man, this kind of makes this decision to let McDonald walk freely and go to another franchise look a
Right.
little bit more look a little bit more of a tougher decision, So
Let's quickly talk about a few of the other firing. If I look at the list of coaches that got let go yesterday, Gannon with the Cardinals. I don't think that's any surprise there. I think
no.
the Cardinals had a really, really tough season. Raheem Morris with the Falcons. Uh, Again, I don't think that's a huge surprise. I think the Falcons are a disaster. I think they have so much talent on that team that I think the expectations were a lot more. The expectations were definitely to make the playoffs, I think, and they fell short of that. Um,
Mhm.
Here's one that got me a little bit off guard because I think they were making ground here. Kevin Stefanski with the Browns. Tell me what you think about that move. Are you surprised at all by that, or is it maybe because I thought he was? I mean, look, you got a new quarterback there. I think the quarterback issue is still going to be in question all year. I think we're going to be talking about that during the off season, leading
Yeah.
up to the next season. So, what are your thoughts on Stefanski being let go by the Browns?
I wasn't that surprised about Stefanski being let go. It
Coach of the
just
year
seems
twice.
like,
I mean, the guy
oh
can
yeah,
coach.
he could certainly coach for the Browns too. Like he
Mhm.
was a two-time coach of the year for the Browns. Like he's probably the best coach the Browns have ever had so
Right.
far. I think, but if you ask Browns fans right now, I think there is a lot of relief that he's gone. Um, it was tough for him because he had all these different quarterbacks. It sounds like he didn't want Deshaun Watson in the organization. Easier to say now and get that out there when, he's performed really badly over
Mhm.
the last couple of years and now obviously hurt as well.
Right.
But from what it sounds like, he was not somebody that was a proponent of Deshaun Watson. And I imagine, too, he was not somebody that wanted Shador Sanders as well when he got drafted,
That's
based
what
on
I
what we hear
get the
about Jimmy Haslam.
feeling. That's the feeling I get is that no one wanted Shador Sanders,
Yeah.
right? It's like no one wanted him, but I'm a huge Sanders fan. I have yet to see anything that turns me off from the kid.
Yep.
And I think there's potential there. I think he could be a QB1 in the league. He's shown some flashes. I just think he needs the right coach. So I think the Browns here, if they are going to decide to go ahead with Shador Sanders as their QB1, I think the hiring of a head coach for the Browns, of all the teams that need a head coach, I think this is going to be one of the most important here.
Oh yeah, absolutely, and that is just an interesting organization in and of itself. Me personally, I wouldn't have let Stefanski go. I would have let go of Andrew Barry, the general manager there, because I
Right.
think the roster asset management. Now, you could say like he's got an owner in Jimmy Haslam that is very much like overseeing everything. It sounds like Haslam was the one that made the decision to have Shador Sanders be drafted, even though they had already drafted Dylan Gabriel earlier on in the NFL draft. So there's a lot there. So it's tough because it's like on paper, you look at the resume, like 2-time coach of the year for the Cleveland Browns and has had to deal with a lot in that organization, never really had the stability at quarterback that you would kind of hope for. He had it at Baker Mayfield briefly, but then
Yes,
obviously we saw with Baker, he goes off and goes to Carolina, bounces around, goes to LA, finally lands with the Buccaneers. But uh, it's kind of tough. Like it's on the one hand, I understand because I do feel like just watching some of those Browns games this year, there it was starting to feel unimaginative. And like this offense was just not really kickstarting. And I can't pinpoint where it's like, oh, this is because of play calling or because the players on the field aren't very good. Because that defense for Cleveland really kept them in a lot of football games
absolutely.
this
Yeah,
year.
yeah,
But the offense was just lackluster. And so I think at this point, it's just a move to like, all right, we think we got a guy, and we know that Stefanski's probably not a Shador Sanders guy. We're going to try and bring somebody in that can at least coach with Shador Sanders, or at least somebody at the QB position. But if I'm Kevin Stefanski, I think I'm just so glad I'm out of that situation in Cleveland altogether, and I get to go and find all these other coaching jobs. I think it sounds like, based on the reports, that he's already been, like mentioned earlier, with Harbaugh. I think Stefanski's also like with the New York Giants job, which isn't
yeah.
that much of a surprise. I think when you have someone like Jackson Dart there, coaches are very intrigued and they want to be that guy that coaches up a young quarterback and gets them to realize their full potential in the NFL. But I think Stefanski will absolutely land a job. I think the first couple of years, in terms of his play calling, I think there's certainly a lot of talent. Like, he's got a good mind for the offense, but sometimes with a lot of these coaches, like, they're good coaches, but you just need a different vision and it's just not working. And I think that's what's happening with Stefanski here. So I wasn't too surprised based on, following Browns fans' reactions throughout the season. But at the same time, I do think that's a talented coach, and I do think he'll get some sort of gig with a NFL franchise in the near future.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, One last thing before we move on from the coaching carousel. Well, what was the the thinking behind bringing Pete Carroll to Las Vegas? I remember seeing the move early on when they hired him, and then they brought Geno Smith, and I was like, oh, Vegas looks serious. Like, I mean, they're bringing
Yep.
in all these guys, and Pete Carroll's, Super Bowl champion head coach with the Seahawks and all that. How did this thing fall apart so fast for the Vegas? Like, Vegas were just complete. I don't want to use the word garbage, but they were not good this year. Like, really not
Yeah.
good, right?
Yeah.
Geno Smith was a shell of himself. I don't know where he goes from here, but like, do you think this was like kind of like we're just gonna bring him in and like he didn't even last a year? Like,
Yeah.
what's your thoughts on this? Like, where does Vegas go from here? Like, does Tom Brady just go ahead and just decide to become the head coach next year?
Well, that would be interesting, wouldn't it? Like, then you ask more questions about his broadcasting capabilities. Will he be broadcasting while also coaching? That would
Yeah.
be hilarious. But in this case, like, I remember when Pete Carroll was hired, it was like, oh, he's going to come in and establish a culture in Las Vegas, and he'll kind of establish a ground rule. I think the idea with Pete Carroll, I don't think he was going to last long either way, even if they were winning football games. I think the idea with Pete Carroll coming into Las Vegas was to establish a culture and say,
Right.
okay, this is the culture we have here in Las Vegas. It's new. We've got Tom Brady in there. Tom Brady was one of those people that was advocating for Pete Carroll to be the head coach. I think they wanted to bring in a guy with a background in Pete Carroll. Players loved playing for him in Seattle, and won a Super Bowl. So I think it's the idea of bringing him in, establish a culture for few years, and maybe potentially like have a coach come under his wing so that eventually you have that coach take over and continue that culture that was built over there in Las Vegas. Obviously, it ended up going the complete opposite
Yeah.
direction, and it sounds like they want to trade Max Crosby potentially. They're exploring that option. Gino, looks like he's just gone. He took away all of his references to the Raiders on social
Yeah.
media, and it was like, which is never really a good sign. But But I think with the Raiders, I think they were kind of coming in. They were such a weird team going into this season because, you know, on paper going in before what we saw this year, it was like, oh, Geno Smith, he's been really good the last couple of years. He was a Pro Bowler at one point,
Right.
comeback player. He seems to have turned his career around. Pete Carroll is somebody that, has won a Super Bowl, and sure, he's a lot older now. He was the oldest coach in the NFL, but he's still, he brings a lot of energy and he's good at building a culture. And we saw what he was able to leave behind in Seattle. But I think at the end of it all, I don't think this was just a right mesh of players, and a lot of these guys were not really Carroll's guys when he came in. And
Right.
so, other than Geno, of course, but like you saw what happened with Geno Smith. Like as soon as he was out of Seattle, and then it was like all of a sudden he went back to the 2015 New York Jets. Geno Smith, it was just
Yeah.
making these bad decisions and just a tough break. And so, I think it just was a plan that went awry. It's like, all right, this is and it's smart of them to rebuild and blow it all up.
Yeah,
I believe their
absolutely.
GM's
Yeah.
still
Yeah.
there, but like I think it's smart to like move on from Max Crosby. I know they like just signed him, but you kind of look at the way that team is built. It's like they're not going to be competitive, especially in that division. So you got the first overall pick. They're probably drafting Fernando Mendoza, which we'll talk about coming up. But
Yeah.
I think I think the idea was to bring him in to establish a culture and get some wins and be competitive in the division, but obviously it went the other way. And I don't think we're seeing Pete Carroll back in the NFL coaching again after that either. I think Pete Carroll will go in the Hall of Fame for his coaching resume, but it will not be because of his 1 year stint in Oakland or in
Yeah.
Las Vegas.
It'll be
So,
forgotten. They won't mention it.
yeah.
It'll be like, oh, you remember when he was a coach for Vegas? I'm like, no, I don't remember that at all.
So I did want to quickly mention too with Atlanta. You touched on earlier the talent that's there, and they were never really fully realizing that. I think it's so smart too. We talk about just blowing it up, just blow it up in Atlanta, and I think that was just a right decision. And I'm
Right.
talking like they got rid of their coach, obviously, which they should have done. They got rid of their GM
GM.
and their GM. Let me tell you, like you look at the asset management the last couple of years, you're like, what is this team thinking with the Kirk Cousins
Yeah.
deal? And then bringing in Michael Penix Jr. The same year. It's like you just signed a quarterback to a multi-year big money contract, and now you're just going to piss him off and get this rookie QB in.
He got
And
buried
there's
for
no
that.
guarantees he's going to be good. Like I liked Penix coming out of college, but there was no
Right.
guarantee he was going to be exceptional. Plus, you look at last year, it's like they didn't have an edge rusher. So what they do, they drafted 2 edge rushers in the first round. And it was like, it was just poor asset management going on in Atlanta. So I think at that point, Arthur Blank just kind of looked at everything and said, you know what, we got to blow it all up and we got to move on. And so the GM's gone. Their president, Rich McKay, is also gone. Matt Ryan is being interviewed to potentially have a significant role in the organization. So I think this is clearly a reset in Atlanta where they want to. It's funny, I mentioned earlier with Las Vegas, but establish a culture of some sort and have new ideas being thrown in the room. And like you mentioned, like this was an opportunity for the Falcons this year to win the division. This was not like Carolina's in on an 8-9 record. If Atlanta could have put it together for a few more games, there's the meme going around. If they beat the Jets,
They beat the
earlier
Jets.
this
They're in
year,
the playoff.
they're in the playoffs.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable, right?
Yeah.
So at least the Jets can have that feather in their cap for the end of this year. But if you're the Falcons, it's like you see that, it's like no wonder I got rid of everybody. And Raheem Morris was very frustrating as a coach. He's always been a very frustrating head coach. I think he's a much better coordinator than a head coach.
Yeah.
But we'll see with that search. Atlanta, I'm circling kind of interested to see where they go because it really does feel like a blank slate over there. Wouldn't
They got
shock me if they
Bijan
decided to trade their young
Robinson
pieces
and
either.
Kyle Pitts. Like
Yeah.
they got some talented player on the offense. Like
Oh,
Bijan
yeah. Oh, yeah.
Robinson could be, is a
Absolutely.
huge superstar. And Kyle Pitts made some stride this year. He improved dramatically this year. He was a lot more what a lot of people expected him to be out of college. And
Yep.
so, it's going to be an interesting job. After the Browns, probably the most interesting job, obviously, with the new GM, with the new coach, with all the new assets they're going to be bringing in. It's going to be interesting to see.
Yeah, absolutely. It's there's a lot there. And so quite a few head coaches kind of being let go just on Black Monday, and
Yeah.
and Jonathan Gannon, as we touched on earlier, not too much of a surprise with the way that the Cardinals are going. I think Kyler Murray is next there too. in terms of being let go. So
Yeah.
I think it's just, unfortunately for the Cardinals, I think they got the wrong guy from Philadelphia when they hired him. They probably should have gone with the other guy, Shane Steichen, who's now with the Colts. And so, but yeah, it's interesting. And I will say too, for my Dallas Cowboys, we moved on from Matt Eberflus. And for those that have
Yes.
listened long enough, I was somebody that was like, we're really bringing in Matt Eberflus, and then I do the thing where I listen to everybody and then I get bought and it's like, okay, Eberflus is not head coach anymore, defensive coordinator. He's known for defense. All right. Then I saw the season play out. It's like, no, I was pretty right about Eberflus at the start of the year. So moving on from him, and now another defensive coordinator in Dallas. So wasting a great offensive season from Dak Prescott again, and very frustrating there. But we'll see what happens next year. But that has also been the motto of the Dallas Cowboys, where we'll see what happens next year.
Yeah, it seems to be the same question every year, right? Hopefully they can get things right, get the great defense and behind that offense and go win a championship, right? Go Dallas.
Absolutely, I agree with that one.
Week 18 was a hoot. A lot of games that didn't mean much, unfortunately, especially early on Sunday. But there was some great games. Buck Panthers on the was it Saturday? Bucks Panthers. Bucks won, but eventually ended up not making the playoffs. Panthers winning the NFC South, but Sunday evening game, Steelers at Ravens. Winner wins the North, and goes into the playoffs. Loser goes home. Obviously, we all know what happened. Crazy game. I was stressed out of my mind. I tried everything to stay as calm as possible. And for about 3.25 quarters, I guess I should say 3.5 quarters, about halfway through the fourth quarter, I was still pretty chill. I was trying to just stay positive and just believe that, before the game, I got down on my knees. I prayed really, really hard for my Steelers. I said, listen, I need to see Rodgers one more time in the playoffs. I need to see what he can do. And I'm not going to lie. When that pass was made to Likely at the end of the game,
Yeah.
and they were well within field goal range. I got up from the couch, I kissed my wife goodnight, and I went to bed. I honestly,
Wow.
I was so distraught because it all started. Look, when he missed that extra point after the Rodgers touchdown.
Hmm.
Holy shit, I forget his name.
Chris Boswell.
Chris Boswell. I'm like, oh,
Yeah, the
Chris,
Boz.
right? He never misses,
Yeah.
especially in Pittsburgh. He never misses. And he misses the extra point, and I'm like, we're going to lose by 1 point because of this. And then when the Likely, I wasn't even angry. I was just like, I didn't know what to do with myself. I got up, I kissed my wife. I said goodnight. She didn't even say a word. She knew exactly. I walked into my room, and seconds later, my son runs into my room yelling, he missed it. He missed it. I'm like, fuck you. He didn't miss it. I'm like, there's no way. And I run out, and my wife is like, he missed it. He missed it. I'm like, the biggest smile on my face. I was so happy that my Steelers won, but I'll say this, holy shit, did I come close to having a heart attack during that game. What a back and forth game. I mean, they kept the best game for last, that's for sure. Last game of the season in the NFL, and it was amazing. As a Steelers fan, not the funnest game to watch. It was definitely stressful. But the Steelers got it done. I mean, I am still amazed that they got it done without pretty much any offense, no DK Metcalf. And we saw early on, we saw last week against the Browns how critical DK Metcalf is to this offense.
Right.
They weren't able to get anything going against the Browns. And early on, you go into halftime, it's 10-3. You got no one on the offense really picking up the slack of DK Metcalf. Rodgers is trying his best to keep this game close. The defense is trying its best to keep this game close. And they played last week. I said, if the Steelers are going to have any chance of winning this, the defense is going to have to win this game. They did blow a few coverages, I'll say that, on a few passes where I was like, God, what the hell, the guys? Like, how can you be this open? There's one pass they made to Flowers. Yeah, I've never seen someone so wide open in my entire life. I'm like, there was no one around. He had 40 yards to run, and there was no one there to even come close to catching him. They definitely blew a few coverages there and during the game, but early on, especially in the first half, I think the Steelers defense did their job. They kept them in the game, just kept giving Rodgers the ball back. And Rodgers kept calm the whole game, and he just kept going down the field. And at the end of the game, he made some big passes, made some big plays, and eventually got the lead late in the fourth. Boswell misses the field goal. I'm losing my shit. And then eventually the Ravens, a rookie kicker, Loop, goes there, 44 yards, wide right, game over. It was so emotional for me. I didn't sleep all night. I couldn't sleep all night. I was so hyped up. Yeah, it was just amazing. I was super happy that my Steelers made it. Give me your thoughts on the game. You obviously watched the game. Give me your thoughts on the game, not having, not being a fan of either of these teams. Obviously, you're going to see it from a different perspective. What did you see during this game?
I saw AFC North football at its best, baby. That's what I was looking forward to with this one. I was like,
hard
these two
hitting,
teams.
hard hitting.
Absolutely. I was like, this is what I was looking for from AFC North football. In Pittsburgh, it's cold. Everybody is outside. Like this is what I look for with a football game like this. I thought there was a lot of times during this game I was like, does anybody play defense? I mean, is there any defensive backs that see the guy that's wide open? Like I was going to mention too, that Zay Flowers one. I was like, wow. And I've imagined as a fan, when you hear the commentator, and he's wide open.
That's what I was going to say. The commentator saw him wide open as the ball was still, I think he didn't even hit the ball yet. I'm like, you know what I mean? He just had the ball in his hand, and I hear the commentator going, "Oh my God, he's wide open." I'm like, oh,
of course, Rod coverage there on that one. It was hilarious. So as a fan, when you hear and he's wide open, that man is pretty wide open when it comes to getting the ball. I was blown away at that ending. I thought that after that Isaiah Likely catch, as you mentioned, that the Ravens had this one. I thought it was one of those key moments for the Ravens. Like finally they were able to get the monkey off their back and they could just say, yes, Lamar led a fourth quarter comeback and led this drive down and got his kicker into position to get the field goal. And really one of the not underrated, but under-talked moments of the game was that Derrick Henry went off again. That first quarter, he was just running all over the Pittsburgh Steelers defense.
100 rushing yards before halftime, but then in the second half, they shut him down.
And so I think that was also pretty key. Like he was on pace for 400 yards rushing
it was
the way
insane.
that he started off in that first quarter. But after that, they were able to shut him down, which I think was very, very key. Because if they weren't able to shut down Derrick Henry, I think I don't think it would have been that close. If I'm being quite
that
frank.
was my worry the whole game, is if when he got 100 yards in the first quarter, I was like, fuck, like this is gonna be a long day. I might be turning this game off in the third quarter. You know what I mean? Like I can't, I can't put myself through this anymore. Like it's just like it's just, I don't hate myself that much. Like I thought it was gonna be one of those games, but when we went into halftime with 10-3, I'm like, all right, this is this is Steelers football. Mike Tomlin's going to cook something up at halftime.
Yeah.
And then come fourth quarter, here come the Steelers. And it was, like
Yeah.
you said, AFC North, Steelers football all the way,
Yeah.
bro.
Yeah. At halftime, Mike Tomlin makes another sacrifice to the gods
Yeah.
and has
Dude.
voodoo once again to get the Pittsburgh Steelers over the hump. I've been watching Tomlin coach the Steelers for so long, as have you, and I still can't believe some of the football teams that he has had. It's so weird because it's so, at some points, like, man, I don't know if he's that great of a head coach.
Right.
But then you look at his rosters, like, man, like, he shouldn't be winning with some of the players that he's got.
Absolutely
this roster
not.
assembling. It's so tough for me to, like, because sometimes I'm like, man, what are they doing with Tomlin? They got to move on from him. And then other times, like, man, he's such a good coach to be able to rally these guys, at least be competitive, especially in that division in the AFC North. But yeah, I mean, I look at all that. It was a fun football game. I audibly said when Tyler Loop missed the field goal kick, I audibly yelled out, "He missed the kick!" Like, you could hear it in my room. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
I think we were all stunned, and I felt bad for him. You know, it's one of those moments, especially when you're a rookie. You're being relied on very, very heavily in that moment to make the field goal, and he was somebody that was making his kicks in that range throughout the season, but. You know, Pittsburgh, as you know, is like, it's very tough to kick do any sort of special teams in Pittsburgh. It's one of the more notoriously difficult areas to do special teams. Plus you have that in cold weather. You know, I thought, I don't know if you saw his post-game presser, but I thought Tyler Loop did a great job of, like, keeping his head high and saying, look, I got to make that kick. And he was accountable to everything and whatnot. So, and that's tough as a young, that could totally shatter your confidence.
Yeah.
So it was good to see that. But man, your Pittsburgh Steelers, I don't know how they do it. I sometimes I'm just looking, it's like, I can't believe these guys are able to, like, put it all together and just, like, I thought going in that Rodgers was done, like the way that he was on the Jets. And even then I was looking at the weapons he had to utilize. Like, man, even if he ends up being all right, like, he doesn't really have much to throw to other than DK Metcalf through the year. And now Metcalf's gone. It's like, who else is he going to throw to?
Right.
But somehow, some way, your team, I don't know how they do it, and I'm sure you don't know either, but they somehow, some way, they're able to come together. I guess through the power of friendship. That's the only thing I can think of to be able to overcome the odds and move on to the playoffs. So, yeah, hell of a football game. It was a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, we'll talk more about the Steelers later on when we preview the wild card weekend. But just happy that my Steelers are there. I have some thoughts on if they're one and done. But we'll talk about it a bit later. Also watched the Seahawks on Saturday, and I texted you. I messaged you late on Saturday. I think I wrote some notes down. I have some notes here somewhere. I was taking notes during the game. Just give me a sec. I got to set my camera.
No problem.
Anyway, I'll leave it like that. It doesn't seem
There
to
you
want
go.
to. I texted you on Saturday, and I thought that the Seahawks, honestly, like, I hadn't really watched Seahawks football at all much this year. I know they were leading. They were one of the best teams in the NFC, one of the best teams in the NFL, but I never really watched a game. And then I watched them on Saturday against the 49ers because I knew it was an important game for both these teams, you know, division rivals, the rivalry, all of that. That's fine. Man, the Seahawks look great. Their defense is stellar. And if they could keep that, their running game was going on Saturday. And if they can get their running backs going and keep it up like they did on Saturday, and just to have Darnold just protect the ball enough to not throw it away, not turn it over. He doesn't need to do anything special. That's the formula in Seattle right now. Defense first, run the ball, make sure Darnold doesn't make any big mistakes, no interceptions, no turnovers. And the game on Saturday was exactly that. Nothing special from Darnold, but He protected the ball, extended plays when he needed to, got out of the way from trouble, and was able to find some guys. He late in the game, I know he found Cooper Cup, and he made a big play. He made a big effort to extend the play, found Cup down the field for the big completion, and eventually what led to them winning and icing the game. But
Yep.
I know a lot of people are talking about the LA Rams are the best team in the NFL. I heard it the last few days. It's LA Rams, but I think the Seattle Seahawks are the best team in the NFL, and right now are my favorite to make it to the Super Bowl.
They have a lot of interesting pieces. That defense is just unreal for
Yeah.
Seattle. We mentioned it earlier with Mike McDonald going in there and really reestablishing the, you know, that the defense that we know of Seattle from the 2010s. They kind of had a dip the last couple of years, but
Mm-hmm.
Mike McDonald helped to really bring that back when he got hired by the Seattle Seahawks. And so they've got a lot of good players on defense that really helps them. And you mentioned too, when it comes to their running backs, they've got a duo in Zach Charbonnet and Kenneth Walker that they really do rely on. It's one of the jokes they have in Seattle, especially if you're a fantasy football player, is that Kenneth Walker is the one that gets all the yards,
Yeah.
but Zach Charbonnet is the one that's the goal line running back that always gets the touchdowns and gets the more points. It's always sort of frustrating, right? But I think you make a great point with Sam Darnold. He doesn't have to do too much.
Mm-hmm.
He knows what his role is. He's more of I guess the equivalent would be like your old school point guard in the NBA.
Yeah.
Where you don't rely on him to get a lot of points, but you rely on him to distribute and get the play going. Really be a game manager.
Yeah.
And a lot of times when you say that, the other one is system QB. When you say system QB, there's kind of a negative connotation to it because it's like, you're not elite though. Like
Right.
you're just a system guy. Like you're successful in the system. But look, if every quarterback was successful in the system, you'd have a lot of good quarterbacks in the NFL.
Yeah.
It's very easy to say, he's a system quarterback, but Darnold knows what his role is. They don't rely on him that much. And even then, like earlier this season, we saw against the LA Rams, he had that comeback for the Seattle Seahawks. And he showed that, look, I can lead this team back, drive the football down the field and get my team back into a winning position. So he has that ability, but they don't rely on him so much for that. Again, they have their running backs. They have Jackson Smith and Jigba, who really broke out this year as a wide receiver one. And I think a lot of people are going to keep an eye on him to really be in that upper echelon of wide receivers in the NFL. Plus that defense, you add all that together in Seattle, and this is a really well-constructed team there in Seattle. And I think a lot of players or a lot of fans were kind of looking at Seattle coming into the season. They got rid of Geno Smith and, they were like, oh, what's kind of the strategy here in Seattle? But they made some smart moves to improve on offense, improve on defense, and it's really come together. Now they've got the bye in the NFC and going to be in the divisional round. They're an interesting team. I don't know if I could really fully commit yet with Seattle. I'm not ready to go all the way and say Super Bowl with them, but I do think they're a well-constructed team, and I certainly think they have a lot of pieces because a lot of those players are very young to be a team to continue to be dominant for years to come. I certainly could see that with Seattle.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see. Obviously, it's the playoffs. A lot of things can happen, but just to add a little bit to your point, the way they're constructed as a team, like they're the perfect balance of like everything seems to be defense, quarterback, and running game. Like just everything. Like again, I watched one game of the Seahawks. It's late in the season, but it was a meaningful game against a tough 49ers team. Yeah, I know they had a lot of, the 49ers are plagued with injury. It's insane, right? But still a really good football team, a really tough football team. That defense is no joke, even with all the injuries, with everything. The 49ers are no joke. I think I saw a lot from the Seahawks that made me think, oh, now will they be able to replicate that 2-3 times to make it to the Super Bowl? I mean, that's what championship teams can do. So I guess we're just going to have to wait and see if they're able to replicate a similar performance that what we saw on Saturday. The matchups are definitely going to be harder. The games are going to be more meaningful. Obviously, it's playoff football.
Yeah.
But I'm excited to watch them. Again, like right now, if I had to pick a team to win it all, if I had to just pick one, it'd be hard to not go with the Seattle Seahawks for me anyway.
Yeah. There you go.
Um, Week 18, that's pretty much it. I know we spoke about the Bucks and the Panthers, but we all know what happened there.
Yeah.
I'm happy to see the Panthers win the NFC South. Sad that I'm not going to see Baker Mayfield in the playoff. I like Baker Mayfield, and he's that type of quarterback that you just want to see in the playoffs. He'll give you
Right.
everything, you know. But I think there was some injuries there. I think we spoke about it last week. I think
Yeah.
uh, at the end of they tried their best. They had during the season Mike Evans, a lot of injuries on the offense. Baker was probably playing with some sort of injury that we'll probably find out later on, shoulder or whatnot. But yeah, happy for the Panthers, and I can't wait to see how they're going to do in the playoff. Happy for Bryce Young and to finally get his shot in the playoffs.
It is funny with the both these teams were looking at the Saints and the Falcons to try and determine who was going to get the victory. Like never has a Saints Falcons game been so like oh my god, what's going to happen here?
It was
When
the
both
only
teams are
meaningful
eliminated.
game, I think, in the early afternoon of Sunday. Everybody was
Yeah.
probably watching that
And
game.
it's not even meaningful to the teams. It
Right.
was just meaningful to the teams above them. Like it's that scene from Family Guy where Peter Griffin's like, he's like, yes, 5.
Yeah.
I have everything and you got nothing. Like that's what they were in the NFC South. So it was hilarious to watch.
Yeah.
Did you see some of the reactions that came out from Baker Mayfield? His wife was like filming
Yeah.
him watching the game.
Yeah.
Like I got a kick out of that too. So yeah, it was very, very funny.
I can only imagine how stressed out he was watching that game, right? Home alone
Yeah.
on the couch watching to see if you're going to play in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Rough, rough for Baker Mayfield. Um, let's look ahead to the wild card. We got some crazy ass matchups here. We got the Rams and the Panthers, the Packers and the Bears, the Bills and the Jags, the 49ers versus the Eagles, the Chargers versus the Patriots, and then the Texans versus the Steelers. So we're going to not try to spend too much time on the matchup. I think we've talked a lot about football and a lot of these teams, maybe not a lot of these teams, but let's go through the matchup for the wild card weekend and try to give our quick thoughts and our quick picks, if you want. Head first off, Saturday matchup: Rams versus Panthers. Who you got? How do you see this game going?
I got the Rams winning. I
Yeah.
don't think it's going to be as blowaway as some people are making it out to be. These two teams faced off earlier in the year, and the Panthers won that game.
Yeah.
Yep. 31-28.
Right.
So I think this is a Panthers team. Sometimes when you have really not much to lose, you're coming in with low expectations. You just go all out there and just play your hearts out and be at your best because you really don't feel that pressure.
Right.
So I think the Panthers will come and play. The Rams are coming in with a lot of, there's a lot of expectations with the Rams with how good they've been this year. And Matthew Stafford coming in, he's likely going to win MVP.
Right.
So there's a lot on the Rams. I still think the Rams are going to win. Obviously, I'm not going to go that crazy,
They're
but
double-digit dogs. I mean, they're the biggest underdog.
It's tough to vote against.
Right.
It's tough to vote against. And so but look, this is what we do. You got to plant the seeds of doubt here. And so, again, the previous times these two faced off, and that was at the time the Panthers we didn't think were that great of a football team. They were able to beat the Rams. It was close.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure, Sean McVay is prepared for this moment. Usually those Rams teams are pretty solid in the playoffs. They usually go pretty far. Obviously, they won a Super Bowl in the last couple of years and been to 2 Super Bowls in the last 10 years. So obviously there's a way to do it with McVay. But yeah, I got the Rams winning and when all said and done.
Yeah, same here. I think the only way Carolina can make it close is if they put pressure on Stafford. I think that pass rush has to be stellar, and they have to try to because we saw towards the end of the season, Stafford was pretty good at protecting the ball most of the season, and towards the end there, he started throwing a few picks a few games where he had 2 or 3 interceptions down the road, and I think if the Panthers are going to keep this close, they're going to have to put a lot of pressure and try to make him make some mistakes. But at the end of the day, I think the Rams are just too strong. Stafford, like you said, most likely going to win the MVP. Yeah, I think the Rams here. Are they going to cover the 10 points? I think they're like favored by 10 right now. I could see them covering. I could see like a score like maybe like 31-20 or something like that, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not a gambling man, but I could totally see them cover. I think it will be closer. I think there's a lot of potential for this game to be closer than people make it out to
Right.
be. Now watch the Rams are going to win 45-10.
Right.
I'm going to look absolutely ridiculous at the end. But I look, the Panthers have been competitive all year long. Why can't they be competitive in the playoffs as well?
Right.
Again, I'm not saying they're going to win, but I don't think I think 10 points is a little high. I think they're a little too heavy of a favorite, the Rams are.
Yeah. Not to mention that it's a home game for the Panthers.
Yep.
The Rams
Because they're the
have
division winners, right? Yeah,
they
yeah, yeah.
have to go into Carolina and win a
Yep.
football game. So probably
Yep.
one of the biggest underdog road favorites in a long time here.
Yep.
Going into Panthers. But yeah, I'm gonna stick with the Rams. But I don't think the Rams will cover their spread. I don't think they'll win by 10. I think it's going to be a lot closer, maybe by a quarter.
Maybe like
Yeah,
a touchdown, maybe.
yeah, maybe. You know what? Yeah, it might be. There's always in the wild card weekend, there's always a blowout game. And you have to
Yeah.
kind of pick like which one is it going to be. Like I
Yeah.
want the Panthers to really make a good game out of this. I would love to see them upset the Rams. Don't get me
Yep.
wrong.
Yep.
I have no stake in this football game. I'm a underdog type of guy. I want to see the underdog win, but yeah,
Right.
I'm gonna stick with the Rams here. Another Saturday game, Packers versus the Bears. Now this is a big game here. Packers and Bears. You know that so I saw a crazy stat. They're both 0-4 in their last 4 starts, I believe. And the
Mhm.
last win they got was against each other. So the last
Oh, wow.
Packers win was against the Bears, and the last Bears win was against the Packers, which makes this
Wow.
interesting. So right now, it's basically a coin flip as far as the spread. I think it's like 1.5. I believe the spread
Mhm.
is Bears are favorite by 1.5.
Yeah.
What do you think here? Who's going to come away with the win here? Steelers, Packers, or the Bears?
I was gonna say Steelers. All of a
Yeah,
sudden
yeah.
they've popped up. We'll wait on the Steelers. I'm going with the favorite here with the Bears. I know that's the kind of there is like if you're looking at the Vegas perspective, there is that tease of going against the favorite with the Packers, but it's really not that much. But I think the Bears will win. I don't think this Packers team is all that well. Like they lost Micah Parsons.
Right.
You know,
Jordan Love is coming back.
Jordan Love is coming back,
Mhm.
yes, but they don't have Micah Parsons coming in. And I was somebody, you know, a few weeks ago that wasn't as high up on Micah in his season. Yes, I know you're gonna throw the stats at me and all
Oh,
that. I get it. But like at the end of it all, like
I don't think
he
he had
still was a
as
contributor.
big as an impact as we expected him to be.
Yeah,
Stats
I
aside.
stats like you look
Yeah.
at some of the stats for sure, but like I think he could have been a little bit more, but that
Mhm.
might be just me. I could also be still very bitter about him moving on over
Yeah.
to Green Bay and the way
Right.
that thing happened. But no, I think the Bears are going to win. I think that Bears team. I like the way that they're coached. I'm picking the Bears more because I don't have faith in the Packers right now. I just don't think the Packers, the way that they played the last couple of weeks, as you mentioned, it's just been a very wonky team for the
Yeah,
last little
absolutely.
bits, and
No, I know what you
it
mean.
just doesn't feel like they're in. There's a cohesion there, and I think the Bears. I think this is a Bears team that you look at the way that Ben Johnson motivates his guys. Like I think that's a Bears team that's wanting to go out there and prove that they belong in the playoffs. And what better statement than to beat your longtime division rivals
Yeah.
in the Green Bay Packers? And then this is the prime opportunity to do it. So I look at that, and of course the Bears, they have the home field advantage too. I look at all of that together and I say I think the Bears are going to get the victory over the Packers.
I will agree with you again. I think the Bears are going to win a very close game. Um, I think it's going to come down to the end of the game and who can keep it together the most. Who
Yeah.
cannot keep their composure when it really comes down to crunch time. I see uh I see the Bears driving at the end of the game and winning by a field goal. I'm
Yeah.
going to say 30-27, maybe something like that, a bit high scoring,
Mhm.
back and forth game all the way. But I think the Bears, I think this is their time right now to at least win one playoff game under Caleb
Yep.
Williams and to show that they are for real, that they're able to win football games, meaningful football games against a divisional rival in the wild card. I'm going to pick the Bears here. Sunday, Bills versus Jags. This to me is one of the, after obviously my Steelers on Monday night. I have to wait all the way to Monday night, by the way, to watch my Steelers. This is going to be
Yeah.
horrible. I'm not going
Yeah.
to, it's going to be a rough morning on Tuesday. Let me put you
Yeah.
that way. Sunday, we got Bills and Jags. Bills are favored by about a 1.5 here in Jacksonville. Uh, how do you see this going? Is Josh Allen going to be able to carry this team against a very good Jaguars team? Do you think he gets it done? Who wins this game, Zach?
Man, if the Bills don't win this football game here, Stefan, they're never winning the Super Bowl with this squad
Not with
that they
Josh
have
Allen.
assembled.
Yeah,
Not with Josh Allen.
yeah,
This is, if there's ever a year for the Bills to make a run and get at least into the Super Bowl, at least now is the time.
right.
They don't have the Chiefs, they don't have the Ravens, they don't have the Bengals. They have a bunch of teams that they can beat. This team can beat those teams. The Bills, though, that defense has me a little bit suspect.
Mm-hmm.
And I find that they are way too reliant on Josh Allen. I know James Cook can add a different dimension to their running game. If they could get James Cook going on that offense and get things going for Buffalo, I think they will beat the Jags. I don't think it is a runaway here for the Bills. I think this is a good Jags team. Liam Cohen has done a really good job this
Yeah,
year of really putting together. I don't think it's really been talked enough about how he took this squad that only won 3 or 4 games last year and putting it all together, have them win 12 games and move on to the next round and go into the playoffs that next year.
yeah,
I think that's something that should be commended for. There's been a lot of talk about the coach of the year, who should win it. There's a lot of great candidates this year. It really is a toss up on who could win coach of the year in my mind. You can make an argument for Mike McDonald. You can make an argument for Liam Cohen. You can make an argument for Kyle Shanahan. There's a lot of different coaches that you can make an argument for. But in the case of the playoffs, I think Liam Cohen has done a tremendous job getting this team together, even with losing Travis Hunter, who they were really investing a
yeah,
lot in to be that dual threat. They lose him during the season. They still go on their winning ways. Trevor Lawrence looks much better. Like, this is probably the best we've seen Trevor Lawrence over the last couple of years. He looks like that guy that had all this potential coming out of college from Clemson. So, and look, the last time the Jaguars were in the playoffs, Trevor Lawrence led a comeback against the Chargers. Big time comeback in the second half. Everybody thought the Chargers were going to win.
yeah.
And, the Jaguars were able to get the victory and get the big comeback in the wild card. So I don't think it's locked, set in stone for the Bills. I am going to pick the Bills because I do think they are built for this, but it is going to be a rough road for Buffalo. I don't think it's going to be easy at all. I think this is one of their weaker teams that have gone into the playoffs over the last couple of years, but at the same time, this is the prime opportunity for them to move far into the NFL playoffs. I think they realize that. I don't think Josh Allen's going to lose this football game. I know they're going on the road. It's going to be tough, but I still am going to pick Buffalo on the road to beat Jacksonville in a very close matchup. I've got Buffalo by a field goal.
I also think it's going to be decided by a field goal, but I'm going to pick the Jags.
Ooh, all right. I
Yeah,
like it. Here we go.
yeah, I'm picking the Jags. Trevor Lawrence in the second half of the season has been playing like an MVP. If Trevor Lawrence played like he played in the second half for the whole season, I don't even think the MVP talk would be even close. I think he is playing some stellar football. I think the Jags a really good football team, and to be able to play at home. I know it's Josh Allen. I know it's the Bills. I'm not picking a favorite here. I'm picking an underdog, but I really,
Yeah.
there's just something about these Jacksonville Jaguars that has me going like I could see potential like I could potentially see this team making it all the way to the Super Bowl. Like I really
Mhm.
see it. There's this I've been a T-Law fan for a long time. Trevor Lawrence, ever since he came out of college, got drafted by the Jaguars. I like the kid. He hasn't shown, he's had a few rough seasons, but like you said, like we saw the Jaguars come back against the Chargers in that wild card game a few years back. So uh, I'm picking the Jags here by a field goal.
Yep.
It's going to be a very close game. Like you said, I think Josh Allen is going to absolutely try to do everything to put the Bills on his back and win this football team. But I do believe he's banged up. I do believe he's not 100%. And that defense, it's got me questioning if they have the potential of making a run in this playoffs. So I'm going to pick the Jags here by a field goal.
I like it. I like it. It really is a toss up between both these teams.
Yeah.
I think it is going to be very close, but I think the Jags will be competitive. I worry about this Bills team, but again, like
Yeah.
if it's not this year, they're never winning a Super Bowl with Josh Allen.
I agree. I agree. 49ers versus Eagles. Another great matchup. These matchups, now that I look at them, I'm like, every matchup down here is crazy. A lot of crazy matchup. 49ers
Yeah.
versus Eagles. Another great matchup Saturday night. Sunday, sorry. Who you got? 49ers, Eagles.
I think some people might roll their eyes at this, like, oh, of course the Cowboys fan is going to do this, but I am picking the San Francisco 49ers over the Philadelphia Eagles. I've been very high on San Francisco throughout the year and how I think just the way that this team, the depth that this team has, all the players that they could just plug and insert. And I think you have all these guys on offense. Obviously, you look at Christian McCaffrey. I know Brock Purdy didn't have his best game against Seattle, but for that, he was just lighting it up on the football field.
Yeah.
Still has a lot of options to choose from on offense. George Kittle, I think, still has some game in him that he could do some stuff. Plus, you look at that 49ers defense. That's always something that you just can't ignore with San Francisco, what they're able to do on the defensive side of the ball. I just look at it all and I look at the Philadelphia Eagles. I just don't think the Eagles are locked in for this playoff game. I think it's going to be a similar scenario where we saw a few years ago, where all of a sudden they just came out flat against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and the
Hmm.
Buccaneers were just coming at Philadelphia. So I'm picking the 49ers. I think they're the much better. I think they're the better constructed football team. I have way too many questions with the Eagles going into this game. I do think they are going to defend their Super Bowl, and I think it's going to be that shocking, oh, the Super Bowl champs are out in the first round sort of scenario. So I'm picking San Francisco.
Um, a few weeks ago, I said the 49ers look unbeatable. They looked like the best team in football. I don't know if I said it here on the show, but I definitely thought it. And I was like, man, these 49ers, I think we need to pay attention here because they're on a roll and they're playing well. But I'm going to pick the Eagles here. And the
Oh,
only way everything scream my heart, I want to pick the 49ers. I really,
yep.
really want to pick the 49ers, but I think they're just too many injuries, too many things. I think they're running. It's just I don't want to say their luck is running out, but I think the steam is running out. I think it's just one thing after the other with their injuries and everything with the 49ers. And I'm not saying the Eagles are going to repeat as champion, but I think the Eagles are not going to lose in the first round here at the wild card. So I just have a feeling I'm going to pick the Eagles. It's going to be a close game, maybe, by 6, maybe. I'm not willing to say it's going to be that close, but yeah, like something like 24-20 maybe by 4 or something,
Mhm.
where the 49ers are forced to drive down the field at the end of the fourth quarter to score a touchdown, and they just don't get it done. So I'm going to pick the Eagles here. So
Oh,
you picked the 49. I'm going to write these down to make sure we could,
yes. Yeah. That way, one of us on the next show is like, oh, look at how good we are.
yeah,
Like, look at how good we are at predicting. But I
um,
like it.
49ers. All right. Chargers Patriots. Another great matchup. Chargers, my surprise team this year. I didn't expect much at the beginning of the season from the Chargers for some reason. I was question marks, quarterback and everything, but Chargers got it done against a very, very tough Patriots team. Drake May, MVP contender. I think Stafford's going to get the MVP nod, but I mean, Drake May's been there for most of the year. Great quarterback. Now, the big questions we all had for the Patriot is, was this a result of their weak schedule that they had going on? Well, we're about to find out. Um, Zach, tell me, Chargers or Patriots?
Another upset for me here. I'm picking the Chargers over the
Chargers.
Patriots. So I just think this Chargers team. Now I am picking the Chargers in a key spot, and historically the Chargers have not been great in terms of coming up big in big time moments. That has not really been the Charger way. And the Patriots have a lot more of a history, even with their recent downfalls over the last couple of years. That there's a lot more success on the Patriots side, but I think this Chargers team is just well put together. Jim Harbaugh is a very good head coach.
Mm-hmm.
We've seen in the past, he's certainly a character, and we've seen he's not able to kind of really keep a head coaching job for a long time, especially in the NFL. But I think I just look at everything. This is a chance for Justin Herbert to really come out here. And it's funny because it's like Herbert's not really been, as much of a focal point because they've had some good games from their running back, especially Amari Hampton. Like their rookie running back this year, Amari Hampton has been really, really good. And then they have been able to win the football games they needed to win. You still have some good players there on that defense. I think that's a well constructed team there. I'm picking them over the Patriots. I am not convinced about the Patriots' run of success. I think I've kind of really been leaning on that the last couple of weeks. It's like, and again, I'm not going to blame them for the schedule that was laid out for them. That they have to win the games that are on their schedule,
Mm-hmm.
and they were able to do that. But there's so much here where I look at the team and I'm like, man, I think of your Steelers a couple of years ago where they won 13 games, but it was also like the schedule was not the greatest. A lot of their teams were below 500
Yeah.
for the teams that they beat. So these were not good football teams that the Patriots were able to beat. In fact, they lost to the Raiders at the start of the season.
Right.
So it's like, I don't know. I'm not as convinced as everybody else seems to be about the Patriots. So I think this will be a wake up call a little bit for New England in terms of the level of competition that they're facing off against. I'm picking the Chargers. I think Jim Harbaugh is a coach that knows how to get his guys prepared, ironically enough, after we talked about John Harbaugh earlier.
Yeah.
But I think Jim Harbaugh is a good head coach. I think there's a lot of talent there with the Chargers. I think they will do enough to beat the Patriots, and I think they will move on to the next round. So I am picking the LA Chargers here.
I'm gonna pick the Patriots.
Okay.
This is a
I like this. We got different takes. I
Yeah.
love it.
This is a coin flip for me. Like you, I think I'm not 100% convinced of the Patriots simply because of the schedule and everything, but I do. I feel the same about the Chargers. And I'm like, I don't know if I trust them. They've been very inconsistent, even with their record. Yeah, I have a hunch. This is completely a gut feeling. I haven't really done any deep digging it for this game. I just look. I'm gonna pick the Patriots. I want to see what Drake May. Really, mostly because I want the Patriots to win. I want to see Drake May, play more than one game in these playoffs to kind of because I think if they do win against the Chargers, then that whole talk about, oh, that schedule was easy and everything, I think it kind of goes, okay, well, at least they can win some playoff football.
Right.
So I'm going to pick the Patriots simply for that, simply because I want to see them win. So go Patriots. So here's another. So we are three. All right. I'm going to pick the Patriots and Zach picks the Chargers.
Chargers.
And we're going to have a lot to talk about next week.
Yes.
Let's see who gets in. Last game, Texans versus the Steelers. Obviously, Go Steelers.
Right.
You know my pick. I can't really
Yep.
sit here and go, am I look, I know, I get it. But people are gonna say everybody's gonna
Yeah.
talk about the Steelers this week about Rodgers could this and like what's the offense? DK Metcalf is coming back, but is that enough to go against the Texans defense that's been playing lights out for a while? I don't trust CJ Stroud. He's been up and down. I think it's a good matchup for the Steelers. I know the defense is hard, but I think Tomlin is going to work something as some more of his voodoo, more of his magic. All right. I think Aaron Rodgers is going to have one of those games, 3 touchdowns, no turnovers. He's going to be able to find either Metcalf, Austin, maybe even Thielen in the end zone. There's going to be some magic here. Uh, the Steelers need to get their running game going against this tough Houston Texan defense. I'm picking the Steelers all the way, baby.
There you go.
Close game, but yeah, I think I'm going Steelers in this game.
There you go.
How about you, Zach?
Well, I'm gonna hit you with the John Cena, famous John Cena quote. Fine speech. I need to ask you this question here, Stefan. I don't want to be that guy, but I'm going to be that guy. I'll be the heel here. Stefan, when was the last time Mike Tomlin led his Pittsburgh Steelers to win a playoff game? When was the last time Mike Tomlin won a playoff game for the Pittsburgh Steelers?
I see where you're going.
Yeah,
It's been a minute. It's been a minute.
In fact, some might say it's been a decade, since he's last won a football game in the playoffs.
Was it 2013?
2016.
2016.
2016.
Yeah.
I know it feels like 10 years ago. It's like, 2012, right? That's what 10 years ago was. But nope, it is 2016, 10 years ago. That was the last time that the Pittsburgh Steelers have won in the playoffs. They've been to the wild card many times, but they have lost in the first round. And Stefan, I really do hate to do this, but like I look at this and like I can't go against this defense. Like I know there are questions about CJ Stroud.
I get it.
I look. I'm not saying I trust CJ Stroud. I don't think the Texans are going to go that far in the playoffs because I do have questions about their offense. But that defense, man, like I don't know if players are going to be as wide open as they were in that Baltimore game as they will be in Houston. I don't know if you could go into a football game and have Kenneth Gainwell be your number one receiver heading into the football game against the Houston Texans. I look at all this and I'll even go as far to say, Stefan, I think it's going to be a rough night for your Pittsburgh Steelers in prime time.
I get it.
I know. I get it. I trust me. I don't really want to. I want to come on here and see you get fired up and like continue on the playoff run. I think it's great when one of us has their team in the playoffs and hooting and hollering, but I think it's going to be tough for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I've got the Texans with a convincing victory over the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'm sorry, Stefan.
It's okay. It's okay. You're not the only one. There are going to be a lot of people saying the same thing. And
look at this, though.
I get you.
Look at this, though. Next week, if you get all your picks right and the Pittsburgh Steelers win, like you got the ultimate victory lap you can take next week. Woo. Like this is going to be like, it might be the most amped up I think I've ever seen Stefan next week if he gets everything right.
Listen,
so
if we go into the Monday night game and I've been right on all my picks, it's going to be fun. It's definitely going to be fun. We're definitely going to have a lot to talk about next week. Hopefully I'm right. Hopefully you're right. Who knows? Let's just hope. I'll take being wrong on all my pick except for the Steelers. How about that? All right.
There you go.
I'll trade them all. I'm willing to trade.
Just so you can get to the divisional round. You want to see that divisional round.
I'm willing to trade a lot more than just these picks that I did in the last 20 minutes. Zach, we also had a lot of college football. I'm going to try to go quickly through these things, but holy moly, Miami over Ohio State in dominating fashion, 24-14 on New Year's Eve. I believe we both pick Ohio State to beat Florida, to beat Miami. we were wrong here, and Miami showed us that they're a contender here, even though they rank 10th. I mean, what's your thoughts on Miami? Like, you legitimately think they have a chance on beating Ole Miss? I mean, Ole Miss. I mean, can they keep this going? Like, what's your thoughts on this first matchup here? Miami, Ole Miss this Thursday. Can Miami keep going, make it to the finals?
Like, there's a possibility here
Yeah.
after being able to overcome Ohio State. I was stunned that Ohio State lost. Maybe I shouldn't have been, but that was a team that I thought, it would be a good football game, but yeah, Miami was able to come in. It was a big second quarter for Miami to really kind of get things going for the Hurricanes, and then they were able to just really kind of hold on after that. You had the big pick six against Julian Sayin as well.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I look at all that as like Julian Sayin didn't have his best game. And you look at the stats and you kind of look at how Ohio State play. Some guy named Bo Jackson, not that Bo Jackson,
Yeah.
but he had a touchdown, 55 yards. Jeremiah Smith has always been somebody that's been at the top of college football when it comes to the wide receiver position. He had a big time game, 157 yards receiving and a touchdown. You kind of look at all that and you're like, oh, Ohio State must have won. But no, Miami came in there, they did what they needed to do, and they were able to beat Ohio State. And going in against Ole Miss is just kind of right now is just the team's like, you know what? We're just doing everything to spite Lane Kiffin
Yeah.
and just show we can win without you. Sometimes, you hear the saying, sometimes hate is a good motivator.
Yeah.
That might be what's going on with Ole Miss. Like, I just don't think they like Lane Kiffin, and they're like, you know what? You left us, and we're going to win without you.
Yeah.
And they were able to go in there against Georgia. I thought Georgia had the lead heading into the fourth quarter
Yeah.
in that game against Ole Miss, and I was like, Georgia just doesn't give up leads like this, especially in the college football playoffs. They've had losses before, but that's usually because they come out flat.
Right.
Usually, when they hold a lead, they can maintain a lead. But Ole Miss, they kept fighting through. They had their daily dose of piss and vinegar
Yeah,
ready to
man.
go, like to play, and they were able to beat Georgia. So I think it becomes wide open in this football game. Like, it's a tale between two teams. I think I'm going to pick Miami though to get the victory and beat Ole Miss. I think Miami's coming in with a lot of momentum, beating the number 2. I think they're a very interesting football team to watch. Again, Ole Miss, like that football game that Ole Miss, the QB there, Trinidad Chambliss had
Yeah.
was just unbelievable for Ole Miss. Like, one of the best college football performances I've seen from a quarterback,
He can
especially
scramble.
considering
Holy moly.
he could go. He immediately like launched himself into a lot of people of like, oh, this is a guy to keep an eye on.
Yeah.
When it comes to the quarterback ranks, he just had a tremendous football game. And so I think it'll be a real fun football game. But I am going to pick Miami to win the Fiesta Bowl and move on to the college football championship.
I'm gonna pick Ole Miss. I like Ole
There you
Miss.
go.
I like the story here. Like you said, just to kind of spike Lane Kiffin and go like all this nonsense of leaving your team that you brought to the playoffs and the number
Yeah.
6 seed, and then right before the playoffs, you're like, see you later. Like, no, I'm not a fan of that. And so just for that, I'm gonna pick Ole Miss. But again, I'm Miami beat a tough Ohio State team, so they're definitely for real. But I'm just gonna keep picking Ole Miss here to make it to the finals. Then you got Oregon versus Indiana. I mean, both these teams kind of 38-3 against Alabama. I think Alabama was never in this game. And Oregon against Texas Tech, I mean, they blanked them 23-0. I mean, that was just a droughty. Who you got here? Can the Ducks upset the number 1 seed here?
I'm going with Indiana again. I'm sticking with them. I think if they were Alabama or Georgia, like if the name was Alabama or Georgia or LSU, I think it would be pretty locked in that this team would go into the final. I think this is a well-built football team in Indiana on both ends of the ball. I look back, I watched that Oregon Texas Tech game, and Texas Tech just really couldn't get anything going on offense, just nothing.
Yeah.
It was just a real tough time for Texas Tech, and that defense for Oregon is pretty solid. But this offense for Indiana, led by Fernando Mendoza, I mean, I think this team is just locked in right now, and I think this team is going to make a big time run, and I will go as far as say they will go to the college football championship and win it. Like I will say it right now.
Yeah.
I think this is going to be one of those seasons that you look back on, and this is like a defining season that you look back and you say, oh, they're going to make a movie about this, where the program that never did anything in football, then all of a sudden they go to number one and they go all the way and win. I think this team is just so well put together. I think they've got all the pieces together. I think it is going to be a bit of a tough matchup against Oregon, but I was thinking maybe it was going to be much closer against Alabama, and they dominated
Yeah.
Alabama. Like, just dominated Alabama. I think it's going to be much the same against Oregon. It might be a little bit more closer, but I really don't think it's going to be like this 26-24 matchup or anything like that. Like, I think Indiana is going to win this football game against Oregon and move on to the college football championship.
Yeah, I'm with you. I can't see Indiana losing this game. I don't think it's going to be close. I think Indiana is dominant. Kirk Cignetti is just, dude, like
some of the quotes that he's a quote machine, isn't he?
He's
just like, I win, Google me.
Yeah,
it's just like
he doesn't give a fuck. Like he's like, this is a good football team. Like what do you want me to say? Like we have a great football team.
We look past the hype. We know what we see on film. Like that's a guy that like, and it's ironic because he comes from the Nick Saban system.
Yeah.
Like he was an assistant in Nick Saban's coaching staff at one point. But yeah, like you could just see a lot of those same philosophies there with Cignetti. You could tell he learned a lot from Saban, and it's really been implemented here in Indiana, and he's really built a great culture over there.
Yeah.
I think we're starting to see the blossoming of a new dominant program in college football in Indiana. Like, I think they've really set themselves up well here. And I think it all goes back to, Kurt Cignetti bringing in the right personnel, utilizing the transfer portal as well. So yeah, like there's a lot that's very interesting about Indiana. Imagine even a year ago, you said Indiana is going to beat Alabama in the college football playoff to move on to the semifinals.
I know, right?
And not only win, dominate them. Like, I think you would be laughed out of the room. So it's amazing what they've been able to do in that year.
And they're already set up for next year too. I heard that TCU quarterback Josh Hoover has signed with Indiana next year in the transfer portal.
Talk about great marketing potential, by the way, for Josh Hoover joining the Hoosiers.
Yeah.
I can already hear the fans chanting Hoover instead of Hoosier. Like, it's gonna be great. So perfect.
I've been somewhat of a orphan when it comes to college football. Everybody always asks me, "Who's your favorite team?" And I'm like, I don't know. I've only started watching college football like 3 years ago, and I've never really. And it's always only around this year. I actually watched some of the regular season, but in the past year, it's only like during the football playoffs. I'm just like, I just watch the teams, and then you're always watching the Alabama and the Georgia and the Ohio State and all these teams. So I'm not willing to commit myself to any team, but I will say this. Before, I know there's probably a lot of people jumping on the bandwagon, but I think the Indiana Hoosiers are my team, just because I love their coach so much. I just love his stoic, I'm like, that's my type of guy. I'm definitely a Hoosier fan, definitely going for the Hoosiers. Indiana wins big against Oregon, goes on, and whoever they face, Ole Miss or Miami, I think they're unstoppable. I think they're on their way to winning a championship. So Indiana all the way.
There you go.
Let's finish the show, Zach, and talk a little bit about hockey. But before we do, to everybody listening, thank you for the listen. Thank you for the share. Thank you for the subscribing to the channel. If you haven't done so yet, go ahead, please subscribe. SVGTV on YouTube. You can catch Blue Collar Sports there. We're also available on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Go subscribe. It'll be great and mean a great deal to us. Help us grow this podcast, this show, Blue Collar Sports. So again, SVGTV on YouTube, and Blue Collar Sports on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Subscribe today and don't miss any future episodes. Zach, I'm gonna throw you the ball in your wheelhouse here. Talk a little bit of hockey, junior hockey. Team Canada falling short, winning bronze yesterday, but obviously expectations, like every year of the juniors, is that Team Canada is going to win gold. Not getting it done this year. Big deal, yes or no, of them not winning gold in the juniors?
I think a lot of the other countries are really stepping up in terms of their production of different hockey players. It's interesting with Canada and the World Juniors. They have not won. They did not win a medal period over the last couple of
Mm-hmm.
years, and that was because Czechia beat them in the World Juniors to in this case, they eliminated them and had them play for the bronze, and they won the bronze yesterday as we're recording. So, there's a lot of talented players on that Team Canada squad. Last year was kind of a joke because there were a lot of players that were left off the roster for Team Canada heading into that year. There was a lot of really talented prospects that were like first rounders that they didn't go with, but it was the idea of, well, we're trying to build a team. We're not trying to build all the best players because that's different from a team, but then we saw how it worked out there at the end. So now you got guys like a Zane Parekh that's on the roster. Porter Martone was on the team the year beforehand. He comes back as the captain this year. They bring in some really talented players. I think with this Team Canada squad, I think one of the things that was kind of taken away when I watched the game between them and Czechia in the semifinal, and Canada was just like, Czechia's a good hockey team. Like that's just a good hockey team. It was not a case of Team Canada shooting themselves in the foot multiple times. There were certainly moments because they are teenagers and younger kids,
Yeah.
or young adults, that especially at the end, you could tell that they were losing their cool. But and there were some moments where I found the team a little bit dislikable because I don't know if you saw, like, early on in the tournament, Martone was going over and like chirping the guys
Yeah.
because they beat Czechia. So there's a lot about this Team Canada squad, but the hope for Team Canada this year is like, can we be as dominant as we have been in the past? And there were elements of that with some of the games that they played. It's like, okay, they could certainly be that dominant hockey team. I think the big thing that you kind of look at with Team Canada is that they don't produce as much goaltenders as they used to in the past. There isn't the Roberto Luongo or Martin Brodeur, somebody that's kind of like coming up there. There's some good goalies that are coming through, but not the elite level goaltenders that we usually have gotten from Canada over the last couple of years. It's kind of gone overseas. A lot of Russian goaltenders have been really good. A couple of Americans as well have been really solid goaltenders. So I look at that. I think the goaltending for Team Canada has kind of let them down throughout the years. And so all that to say, I I don't want to say I'm concerned because I still think the expectation is, because of just how long Canada's dominating, how so deeply entrenched in hockey this country is,
Yeah.
that you still have the expectations each year. But I think a lot of these programs, especially like the Americans, have really stepped up with a lot of their talent. You're going to see that with the Olympic roster too. Some of the different players that they have on their Olympic roster. Overseas, I mean, Sweden always has some good hockey teams that will be competitive. Czechia has been really developing their program over the last couple of years. You know, there's a lot of good players that play for those teams, and so I was disappointed. I thought this Team Canada squad was talented enough to get to the finals, and at least win a silver. But they just can't seem to beat Czechia right now. Czechia just is like, it's weird to say, but they're kind of the Americans for Team Canada right now.
Mhm.
It's just that's the team that they can't seem to beat whenever they're in a critical situation. And it was a prime opportunity. I mean, the Americans were eliminated in the World Juniors as well. They had some good players too that were coming in, but they got eliminated in the quarterfinals, didn't even compete for a medal. So this was an opportunity for Team Canada to really go deep and play well. But uh, all that to say, I there's still a lot of talented players, obviously, but I think you're just seeing more of these other countries have really solid programs and really being able to, really cultivate a lot of good players from their program. And the funny thing too with some of these other teams, like you look at Team Canada, it's like a lot of guys you would see in the OHL, which I will sometimes help out with, and the WHL and the QMJHL. Uh, you got all these different hockey leagues that are part of the junior system, but a lot of those players too also are from overseas. Some of
Right.
them play for Finland, some of them play for Sweden. They know the level of competition and they know what they're getting. So, yeah, it was tough. It was an interesting hockey game. I was certainly invested through and through. I watched pretty much most of the Team Canada games, and I thought they were a talented enough squad. But in the end, they just couldn't beat Czechia. They just had a tough time, and I think Czechia was just the better hockey team when it came to just whether it be on the back check. And there's the key moment in the game where they had two opportunities at the same penalty shot and just were not able to convert. Right? You
Wow.
very rarely see
Yeah.
a player have an opportunity on the penalty shot twice, and just wasn't able to convert. So it's tough. Obviously, Hockey Nation, you want them to be better, but um, and those players too, like you could tell from their post game press conferences that they wanted to be better. Zane Parekh, even though he set the record for points by a defenseman in the World Juniors, he was like, I kind of feels empty because I won bronze.
Right.
And Jerome Iginla's son Tidge Iginla is on this team, and like he was also somebody that was kind of like I need to be better. And Porter Martone said, we need to be better. Like a lot of these guys were like, we need to be better. So I think there's a good mentality there that it's going to get better, but it's obviously a little rough in the end.
Yeah. Hopefully it'll be like an eye-opening experience for them, and it'll make them come back stronger and next
Yep.
season, next tournament. Zach, another great episode. Thank you so much for taking the time to join me here at Blue Collar Sports to talk some sports, football, hockey. Appreciate you, man. Thank you very much for giving me your insight, your expertise. Another great episode. What else can I say? Thanks again
Yeah.
for giving me some of your time. And hopefully we get together next week and we get to talk about how my Steelers beat the Texans, and I get
Yeah.
to throw it back in your face. It's going to be fun.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe next week I have to be the one that gives out the nickname.
Yeah.
If the predictions go the opposite way. Like if the predictions go the opposite way, maybe I have to be the one's like, oh, I got to come up with a creative nickname now.
You can introduce the show at the beginning.
Yes,
It's like, we have
I could. Yeah, and I'll do it in like a very somber tone.
Yeah.
This is a very humbled Zach McGibbon introducing the show, and I, as part of my mandate on the show, have to introduce Stefan Paulson by this nickname. Like almost like a court order. Like
It
just
might
having to get
be
that through.
the happiest you've seen me, or it might be a very somber episode next week. But go Steelers, and
Yeah.
all you sports fan out there, I hope you enjoyed this time of year. It's really amazing. A lot of sports going on: hockey, basketball, and obviously football. I
Yep.
hope you enjoy the playoffs next weekend, Zach, and to all our listeners, enjoy all the games next weekend. And I'm sure we'll be texting back and forth about those games, even the college football starting on Thursday.
Yep.
And hopefully we talk again soon, Zach, next week, so we can give our thoughts on the wild card weekend that's about up. Thanks again. Thank you, listeners, for sticking with us. And again, thank you for listening. And we'll catch you next week for another episode of Blue Collar Sports.